I never thought I'd end up working in the royal palace gardens. My name is Elias, and I'm just a commoner, a man who knows soil and stems better than silk and ceremony. But when the head gardener fell ill, they needed someone who understood the rare midnight roses that only bloomed under moonlight. That someone was me. Queen Adriana was different from what the kingdom whispered about her. Yes, she ruled with an iron will. Yes, she'd made decisions that some called ruthless. But in the 3 weeks I'd been tending her private gardens, I'd noticed something else: the way she'd pause by the fountain at dawn, her fingers trailing through the water as if searching for something she'd lost. She never spoke to me directly. Queens don't acknowledge gardeners. We existed in parallel worlds, separated by bloodlines and destiny. But today was her birthday, and the entire palace buzzed with preparations for the grand evening celebration. Nobles from distant provinces had arrived with jewels and gold, exotic silks and rare artifacts. Each gift more extravagant than the last, each giver hoping to catch her favor. I had nothing of value. Nothing except the flowers. That morning, I'd found them, a cluster of dawn lilies that had bloomed overnight in the north garden. Their petals were the color of sunrise, pink bleeding into gold, and they smelled like hope itself. Dawn lilies were legendarily rare, said to bloom only once every few years, and only for those pure of heart. My hands trembled as I cut them carefully, arranging them with sprigs of lavender and white heather. It was a simple bouquet, embarrassingly modest compared to the treasures being presented to her. But it was honest. It was real. The throne room was overwhelming when I entered: crystal chandeliers, marble columns, the assembled nobility in their finest garments. I felt every eye turned toward me, heard the whispers of confusion. What was a gardener doing here? Queen Adriana sat upon her throne, her posture perfect, her expression carefully neutral as she received gift after gift with practiced grace. Her gown was deep burgundy, embroidered with gold thread, and her dark hair was pinned with diamond-studded combs. She looked untouchable. When my turn came, I approached with my modest bouquet. The room fell silent. Someone laughed, a sharp, derisive sound that cut through the air. I knelt, offering the flowers. "Your Majesty," I said quietly, "these bloomed for you this morning. Dawn lilies. I thought you might like them." Her eyes, deep brown, carefully guarded, fixed on the bouquet. For a long moment, she said nothing. I could feel the judgment radiating from the assembled nobles, could imagine the ridicule I'd face later. Then she stood. The room seemed to hold its breath. She descended the 3 steps from her throne, her gown rustling softly, and took the flowers from my hands. Her fingers brushed mine, just for a second, but it sent electricity up my arm. "Elias," she said, and I was shocked she knew my name. Queen Adriana held the bouquet close to her face, breathing in the fragrance of the dawn lilies. I saw something shift in her expression, the careful mask slipping just slightly. Her eyes glistened. "My mother loved these flowers," she whispered, so softly that only I could hear. "She used to take me to the gardens at sunrise to search for them. I haven't seen them bloom in 5 years. Not since she..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The entire kingdom knew that the previous queen had died when Adriana was barely 20, forcing her to take the crown before she was ready. I remained kneeling, unsure what to do. The protocol would be for me to back away now, to return to my place among the servants. But something in her eyes held me there. Then she did something that shocked everyone in that throne room, myself most of all. She stepped forward and pulled me to my feet. Before I could process what was happening, her arms wrapped around me, the bouquet pressed between us. She held me close, her face buried against my shoulder, and I felt her body shake with a suppressed sob. The throne room erupted in gasps and whispers. This was unprecedented. Scandalous. Queens didn't embrace commoners, didn't show such raw emotion in public. But I didn't care about any of that. All I felt was her warmth, the way her fingers gripped the back of my simple jacket, the soft scent of jasmine in her hair. Without thinking, my arms came up to hold her back, gently, reverently. For that moment, she wasn't a queen. She was just Adriana, a woman who'd been carrying the weight of a kingdom alone for too long. "Thank you," she breathed against my shoulder.
Thank you for remembering that I'm human.
When she finally pulled away, her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her expression had softened. She really looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. "Clear the room," she announced suddenly, her voice regaining its royal authority.
All of you.
"The birthday celebration will continue this evening as planned, but I wish to be alone now." The nobles exchanged confused glances but began to file out, shooting curious and envious looks in my direction.
The Lord Chamberlain looked particularly distressed. "Not you, Elias," the Queen added as I moved to leave.
"Stay." My heart hammered in my chest as the massive doors closed, leaving us alone in that vast throne room. The morning light streamed through the stained glass windows, painting patterns of color across the marble floor. Adriana set the bouquet carefully on a nearby table, then turned to face me fully. Away from the crowd, she seemed younger somehow, less burdened.
"Do you know what it's like," she asked quietly, "to have everything and everyone around you calculating their every move, every word? To never receive anything that isn't part of some scheme or political maneuver?" I shook my head.
Every gift today, Adriana continued, moving slowly around the throne room, was chosen by advisors and accountants.
That ruby necklace from Duke Westfall? He wants trade concessions. The silk tapestries from the Eastern Province?
They're hoping I'll lower their taxes. Even the poetry dedicated to my beauty, commissioned work, calculated to flatter. She paused by the window, her silhouette framed by colored light.
But flowers picked by hand, because they bloomed and made you think of me? That's the first genuine gift I've received in years. I found my voice. "Your Majesty, I should confess I didn't know about your mother.
I just thought they were beautiful, and you deserved something beautiful." She turned to look at me, and something in her expression made my breath catch.
That makes it even more precious. Adriana crossed the distance between us, each step deliberate.
We were alone, truly alone, in a way that should have been forbidden. My position as a commoner, her role as queen, the scandal it would cause if anyone knew, none of it seemed to matter in this suspended moment.
"May I ask you something?"
Her voice was barely above a whisper now.
"When you held me just now, was it only duty? Only because your queen commanded it through action?" My mouth went dry. "Truth or safety? The gardener's life or the truth of my heart?" "No," I admitted. "I've watched you these past weeks.
I've seen you visit the gardens at dawn when you think no one's looking.
I've seen the sadness you hide behind the crown.
When you stepped into my arms, all I wanted was to take some of that burden away, even for a moment." Her hand rose, hesitant, until her fingers touched my cheek. The gesture was tentative, questioning.
"You see me," she said softly. "Not the crown. Not the title. Me."
"Adriana," I whispered her name, not her title, her name, and watched her eyes widen and then soften.
She closed the remaining distance between us.
This close, I could count the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "I shouldn't want this," she murmured.
"I shouldn't want you."
"There are rules, expectations, an entire kingdom that would object." "Then tell me to leave," I said, even as my heart screamed at the thought.
"Tell me to go back to the gardens and forget this moment."
Her fingers slid from my cheek down to my collar, grasping the fabric there.
"I can't," she breathed. "God help me, Elias, I can't." Then she kissed me.
It was soft at first, questioning, as if she expected me to pull away or remember my place. But I'd forgotten everything except the feel of her lips on mine, the way she melted against me when I pulled her closer. The kiss deepened, became urgent, 5 years of loneliness and isolation pouring out of her.
When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. "Come with me," Adriana whispered, taking my hand.
She led me through a small side door I'd never noticed before, down a narrow corridor used only by the royal family. We climbed a spiral staircase, her hand warm in mine, until we reached her private chambers. The rooms were surprisingly intimate, not the cold, formal spaces I'd imagined. Books were scattered across surfaces, a half-finished embroidery lay on a chair, and through the open balcony doors, I could see her private garden where I'd found the dawn lilies. She locked the door behind us, a click that seemed to seal us away from the world and its rules. "I haven't brought anyone here in 2 years," she said, turning to face me. "Not since I realized that everyone wanted something from me, that no one saw past the crown." Her hands moved to the diamond combs in her hair, removing them one by one, letting her dark waves fall free around her shoulders. "But you gave me flowers." I watched her transform before my eyes, each pin removed, stripping away another layer of the queen until only Adriana remained. She was breathtaking. "Tell me to stop," she said, moving closer, her fingers working at the buttons of my jacket. "Tell me this is madness." "It is madness," I agreed, but my hands found her waist, feeling the warmth of her skin through the silk of her gown. "Beautiful, impossible madness." She pushed my jacket from my shoulders, and I heard her breath catch as her palms pressed against my chest. "I've wanted this since the first morning I saw you in the gardens," she confessed. "The way you handled the flowers so gently, the way the sunrise caught in your hair." I told myself I was being foolish, that it was just loneliness talking. "And now?" I asked, my hand sliding up her back, finding the laces of her gown. "Now I don't care," she breathed against my neck, her lips tracing fire along my skin. "Let me have this one perfect thing. Let me have you, even if it's just for today." I kissed her answer away, walking her backward until she fell onto the plush bed, pulling me down with her. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, gilding her skin as I finally loosened her gown, revealing her to me piece by piece. She wasn't a queen in that moment, she was simply a woman, ardent and real and achingly vulnerable. Her fingers traced the muscles of my back, explored the planes of my chest, learned the map of my body as I learned hers. "Elias," she gasped as I kissed the curve of her throat, the hollow of her collarbone, the soft skin above her heart. "Please." I loved her then, slowly and thoroughly, watching her come undone in my arms. Outside, the palace bells chimed the afternoon hours, but in that sanctuary, time seemed to stop. We lay tangled together as the sun began to set, her head resting on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. The real world waited beyond that locked door, but neither of us wanted to acknowledge it yet. "They'll notice I'm gone soon," Adriana finally whispered. "The evening celebration will begin in 2 hours." "I know." I pressed a kiss to her hair. "What happens now?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat up, pulling the sheet around herself, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What do you want to happen?" It was my turn to sit up. "What I want? Adriana, you're a queen. I'm a gardener. What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me." Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing. "I've spent 5 years making decisions based on what the kingdom needs, what tradition demands, what my advisors recommend. For once, I want to make a choice based on what I want. But I need to know, is this just a moment for you? Or could it be more?" My heart pounded. "You're asking if I'm asking if you could love me. Not the queen. Not the crown. Just me." I cupped her face in my hands. "I already do. I think I started falling the first time I saw you trailing your fingers through the fountain, looking like you'd forgotten you were allowed to feel the water. But Adriana, how could this possibly work? The scandal alone would. Let me worry about the scandal." Fire sparked in her eyes, the will that made her a formidable ruler. "My mother married for political alliance and spent her life miserable. I won't make the same mistake. The kingdom has rules about who a queen can marry, but those rules were written by men who never imagined a woman strong enough to change them." "You'd risk your throne for this? For me?" "I'd risk it for the chance at happiness," she corrected. "For the possibility of waking up next to someone who brings me flowers just because they bloomed." "Is that so foolish?" I kissed her softly. "It's the bravest thing I've ever heard." She smiled against my lips. "Then stay. Not just for tonight, but for all the nights after. Be my gardener in public, but in private, in these rooms, in the garden at dawn, be mine. Always," I promised. As the evening bells began to toll, calling her back to her duties, she dressed slowly, letting me help with the laces and pins. But something had changed. The crown she placed on her head no longer looked like a burden. At the door, she turned back to me.
The flowers you gave me?
I'm having them planted in the royal garden.
Dawn lilies, blooming eternal.
So I'll always remember the day a gardener taught a queen how to feel again. I watched her leave, knowing that while the road ahead would be difficult, we had chosen each other. Sometimes, I realized, the most revolutionary act is simply choosing love. One bouquet of flowers had changed everything, her trust, her heart, and mine too.